Welcome, class. Well, today I am going to present to you a APA in 9 slides plus a few. And I like to call this easy peasy lemon squeezy. Why? Because if you just pay attention to the rules and listen to them, and you also might want to take notes as you watch this presentation. So let's start with the easy one, citations, in text with authors. Now, what does in text mean? That means in your essay, in with your words, okay? And the citation tells your reader where you found the material. So the first style that I'm showing you is according to Smith, 2020, comma, space, and then the direct quote from the source. Now, if you had paraphrased this, then you would not use the quotation marks. And this little thing here, this phrase, is considered a signal phrase. What it's doing is it's signaling to the reader that the material that's going to be coming up next is something that came out of a source that Smith wrote. Okay, so that's first style. The second style is when you have two authors. Then you would write, again, the signal phrase, according to Smith and Jones, and you'd spell out and, again, space, and in the parentheses, the year. You close the parentheses, you put a comma, you put a space, and then again, this is a direct quote. And again, if it's not a direct quote, then obviously you would not use the quotation marks. It would be a paraphrase. But no matter what, those are not your words. You must cite. And that's what this is called, and that's what this is called. Now, if you don't want to use a signal phrase, the next style would be putting the author information and year at the end. So you'd put the direct quote, quotation marks, space, parentheses, the author's name, comma, 2020, close parentheses, the period. Now, many students insist on putting the period here. It does not belong there. Consider the citation part of this sentence that you took from the source. It's part of it. It's not separate from it. So put that in your mind, and that way you'll remember that the period always goes at the end. Now, if there's two authors, now here's where it's a little tricky. Again, you have the direct quote, space, no punctuation mark here, such as a period. The period is out here after it, and it would be Smith and Jones. This is the ampersand sign that you will find on the number 7. Okay? All right, so that's the first step in citations. Now, what if you had a page number? If you actually was taking this information from an article that has a page number, then you are responsible to put that page number there as well. So, basically doing the same thing as the previous slide according to Smith, blah, 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 quotation mark, space. Now you'd have to put the page number here. P, period, space, the page number, close parentheses, period. If you notice, this is not a capital P. It's not the word page or pages. We don't do that. We just use the abbreviation P. And again, this would be the same style according to Smith and Jones. Again, at the end, page 12. And this is the one author. If you're doing the citation at the end in the parentheses, again, this would be Smith, comma, space, 2020, comma, space, P period 12. Close parentheses, period. If you notice that after a comma, there's always a space. Put that in your brain as well. Okay, and this is the last one with the two authors. Okay, let's move on. Yes, okay, some of you are using articles that may not necessarily have an author. I strongly suggest not to, because that type of source material is very suspect, because who wrote it? Are they an expert? Are there somebody that lives in a little igloo in Alaska that found out how to connect to the internet and is just putting all kinds of stuff on the internet? So do yourself a favor, step up your game, and use articles that have authors. Now, you will find articles in certain organizations that are created by a staff of people who are considered specialists in the field. One of them obviously is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So in that case, if you were going to use a citation from the CDC, this is how you would write it. According to a report from the Centers from Disease Control and Prevention, and then in parentheses you can put the abbreviation CDC, and then space, 2020 is when it was written, comma, and then you would have the quotation with the period inside the quotation marks. Now, you wouldn't write according to a report from the CDC because there are some people who would not know what the CDC is. But for the first time that you use anything from the CDC, just write the whole thing out, and then anytime after in your essay you use the organization, then you can write CDC. Okay, now I've put this one here as well. This is just from a website. Again, I have how is this a credible source, who wrote it, and if there's no date when it was written. I put it here just in case, but I am telling you that this is not a good source if it's just a plain old website. But in any case, this is how to cite it. This is the direct quote, space, parentheses. You use the first two or three words of the web page title. Not the organization, not the URL. You use the first 2 or 3 words of the title of the page. That appears up at the top. And in this case, the title of the page was Rain in Spain. If you notice, that title also in the citation is in quotation marks. So it's parentheses, quotation marks, Rain in Spain, comma, quotation marks, space, 2020 is the year, close parentheses, and then you put a period. All right, so notice, never ever use a URL in text for a citation. And the URL is the www, the HTTP, or in some cases the DOI. All right, so now let's move on to the dreaded reference page. Here are just some pointers just to get us started. First, the title references is just like it is here. Bold, it's upper and lowercase, the R is capital, the rest of the letters are lowercase. It's centered on the page. It is in bold font. Always use 12-point Times New Roman font. References appears on the very first typing line of the page after your essay. It does not appear, if your essay ends halfway down the page of essay 5, of page 5, you can't put it on page 5. You have to put references on page 6. The title references appears on the first typing line. Everything on this page is double spaced. There are no extra spaces from references to the first entry. The entries here on this side begin with the last name of the author or the first word of the first letter of the organization name. You're going to alphabetize the list by the first letter of the entries. The first line is always left justified, and then every line after that of that one entry is then indented. Okay, so let's move on. I kind of jumped there. All right, those are the basic steps. Here is a sample references page. So we have Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's the organization. Period. A lot of you are forgetting the period after this. The punctuation is very important when you come to APA. So there's a period here, then a space, then the year, a period after the parentheses. The title of the page was drinking water. If you notice, that is in upper and lowercase. In addition to that, it's in italics. The first word of any title, whether it's a title of an article, a title of a book, a title of an article that a title of a journal article, all of those follow this upper and lowercase rule. What does that mean? That means that the very first word, first letter is capitalized. All the other letters are not. But there are some exceptions, and I'll show you one exception in a second. So let's just go back for 1 second. All right, so the first line is left justified. The second line is 5 spaces indented. Now, if this did not fit on this line and I needed a third line, that third line would appear right underneath this H. Okay, so let's move to the next one. You notice here I have C, J, S, and Y. That's what I mean alphabetized by the first letter of each of your sources. So here's two sources. Okay, so we have Jones, comma. A lot of you are leaving out period. So it's D period, A period. That's their first initial and middle initial. We don't use full names in APA. Then we have a space. Then we have the ampersand sign. Again, the ampersand sign is on the number 7, space. And then the second author, and then his or her initials, I'm not sure, period, and then a space. Then the year, period. Then we have the title. Now, if you notice here, the title is not in italics. That is because we have a journal. This particular article came out of a journal, so no italics. However, it does follow the upper and lower case rule. What do I mean by that? Well, the first word has a capital T. The next word is a lowercase. The next word is a lowercase. Now we have a punctuation mark. The rule is any word after a punctuation mark, that first letter is capitalized. So obviously the C is capitalized. Agents is not. Now, then we have the italics rule for a journal. The journal name is italicized as well as the volume. Every journal, typically every journal, has a volume and then a issue number. And this is how it's represented. There's a comma here, and then these are the pages, and then a period. Now in this particular case, the source had a DOI, so that's the DOI number is listed there. Okay, so the next source, again, looking at the punctuation, I'll let you do that carefully. Again, the title is not in italics because it came out of a journal. But if you notice, the upper and lower case rule is applied. The first word, capital T. The rest of the words are lowercase except Spain. That's a proper noun. So proper nouns, places, names, countries, cities, counties, states, those are all proper nouns. They have to have a first letter capital, as well as any word after a punctuation mark. So just jot those down as your notes. Again, the Journal of Natural Physics and the number 5, all in italics. Notice the commas, and then the page number and a period, and then of course we have the HTTP. All right, now this last one is a book. So here is the author, the year, again a period, rain in Spain, the upper and lower case rule. Rain is the first word, capital R. Spain is a proper noun. Now we have a punctuation mark, so the T in the has to be capitalized. The rest of this does not. This is a book, so the entire title is in italics. And then we just put the publisher. We used to put the city and state. So in this case, Pearson usually was published out of Boston, Mass. So this would have read Boston, comma MA, and then a colon, and then Pearson. The new 7th edition, we do not use the city and state anymore. We just use the publisher. So there, my friends, is a quick and easy way to put a reference page together. This should have everything you need. I know, I'm leaving one out. The dreaded web page. All right. The web page is done like this. The title of the web page is first in italics, period at the end, space, then the year, and then the URL is placed on the next line, indented. Again, I'm going to ask the questions. Who wrote it? Where did it come from? Was the person an expert? Was the person just a crazy person or someone that just wanted to put some stuff together? But I have it here in dire cases, but I am telling you, for college level essays, step up your game. Alrighty, so let's move on and let's look at the cover page. Here it is. The title, 12-point Times New Roman, it's in bold, 4 spaces down from the first typing line. Your information, 4 double spaces down, the title is bold, and the rest of this information is in regular font, also double spaced. Page number, use the page number that goes in the top right corner. It's top of page plain number 3 when you're choosing it from the header. And that, my friends, that's all, folks. I hope this helped. Bye-bye for now.